This is Chris Morrow, and I'm a ComicCon at home. I'm remotely connected to Tin Fish, and the panel is Dune Publishing panel. Best-selling science fiction authors Frank Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. Hello.
Hello, Chris.
Hi. First, I want to talk about your backgrounds. What's the significance of the water, and then yours, Kevin?
Well, Kevin is our new book cover, and he can talk about that. I have water behind me because our first book is Dune, the Duke of Caladan, our first trilogy coming out this year. We have a trilogy every year. I'm just kidding. But our book is coming out in October, and it's Dune, the Duke of Caladan, and the cover is quite different from your normal Dune book.
Right. And my background is the Bill Sienkiewicz painted cover for the Abrams graphic novel of Frank Herbert's Dune. Brian and I, as we just talked on the panel that we're following, talked about adapting scene for scene the Frank Herbert novel into graphic novel format, which is quite an intimidating and challenging project to put into comics. But Dune's such a visual thing that we really want to make it so that people can see it as well as the words.
Well, Kevin is actually sitting on a sandworm, and he's about to go flying off.
Tell me more about the panel. What was discussed?
Well, we had 5 editors there, I believe, didn't we, Kevin? We had Penguin Books, we had Bantam Books, we had Tor, who's publishing our new trilogy, we had Abrams, and we had Boom.
Yeah.
And so they all, we're all working together, which is nice to see publishers, you know, sharing information, sharing videos, audio. Really great.
Yeah. Well, and it's just a whole different avalanche of Dune products, whether it's the monthly comic series of House Atreides, and Bantam is reissuing House Atreides, the trilogy, and Tor's got the brand new book, and Penguin Random House are doing some really interesting things with the original Frank Herbert books. So it's Dune fans are just going to be in their heyday here coming up in this fall and winter, and they're just going to have so much in it. And just as a fan, because I read Dune when I was 11 years old, and I just have to say from the bottom of my heart, it's about darn time. We've been waiting so long to have Dune get the same public exposure that some other science fiction properties have.
And I grew up on the poor side of average, and I used to listen to Dad reading passages from Dune, you know, early drafts of Dune to my mother when we were living in a flat in San Francisco in a working class neighborhood. So it's been a long road to where we are today. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in 1986, my mother in 1984. They did see a lot of the success of Dune, but it seems like a lot of parts are coming together now that we never had before. We've got the comics, the graphic novel, we've got games. We have a TV series in the works based on one of Kevin's books and my book. It's a collaboration, Sisterhood of Dune. We have the new Dune movie, which is going to be in 2 parts. The first movie is supposed to be out later this year. So all these parts are coming together, and I wish my mom and dad could have seen all of it, but it certainly is an exciting time. And really, we are monitoring the Dune canon. I mean, we're doing the best we can to make sure that all these products maintain the quality that my father set up.
So I'm not going to be going to Target and seeing, you know, everything down the aisles Dune like there is Star Wars.
I don't think so, and I'm not William Shatner, and he's not Leonard Nimoy either. But no, you know, there could be too much of anything. So far, there's not too much of Dune. We want more, but we'll know when that happens.
Well, but face it, who wouldn't want a Dune cuddle pillow or a sandworm cuddle pillow that you could just hold around you?
There might be a few of those things.
Yeah. Well, this is the publishing panel, and Brian and I are working on the various the writing and the literary aspects of it. Things like the sandworm cuddle pillow and stuff. Those are kind of out of our hands.
He's making that up. We've never heard of that.
Yeah. No, I'm just that's not.
They're going to take it seriously.
Well, I hope it's not in there, but you know, we're doing our best. The Dune. Let's see if I think this was discussed in the panel, but in October is the Duke of Caladan, And I think later in November is the Abrams graphic novel volume 1, because Frank Herbert's novel was written in 3 separate parts. So it's going to be 3 separate graphic novels. And then the monthly Boom comic issues, I think those come out in October. It's just such a flurry, it's hard for us to even keep track of it.
Wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Our friend Scott Brick, who is the reader for many of the Dune books, is doing an audio, a book of A Dreamer of Dune, which is the biography I wrote of Frank Herbert. And that was a Hugo Award finalist. And Scott will be releasing that in November. So this is the first time we've ever had an audio book of Dreamer of Dune, and a lot of fans that want to know more about my semi-impoverished background, the genius that created Dune, that'll all be in the audio book of Dreamer of Dune.
Is it normal to have all the publishing houses working together on these projects, or is it something that just happens all the time?
It's not normal for us, but it makes sense. I mean, I don't know why they don't work together more on other projects.
Well, it's kind of a new world, and we're just very happy to see how everybody's pulling this together. And back in the 90s and early 2000s, that was, publishers were very much, Bantam was Bantam and Tor was Tor and Ace Books was Ace Books, but it's all Dune, and if you're a Dune fan, you're going to be wanting to dip into each one of them. And I think Brian and I were strongly encouraging them too, because we work well with all the different editors, and we thought, hey, why don't you exchange some ads, and why don't you help us cross-promote things? And it's really, in the days of social media right now, it's so, like this panel right now, every one of the publishers helped us to promote it. And we were trying to promote all across the board, because, if you prefer the monthly comics, then go to Boom. If you prefer the new novels, then Tor Books is publishing, or Bantam is reissuing them. Or if you prefer Frank Herbert's classics, then go back to Penguin Random House, who's reissuing them. But there's, it's all in the great universe of Dune, and it's maybe different aspects of it, but we're just very excited about it.
Well, it's pretty incredible that Frank Herbert wrote his books mostly without computers. So he had 1 million words of his 6 novels in the series in his head. Kevin and I have added a couple more million, but we're not the genius Frank Herbert was, so we do need computers to help us out. And Kevin jumps into one of Frank Herbert's big shoes, and I jump into the other one. And together we've had a great collaboration. It's been 21 years or more. Actually, I met you 23 years ago.
Yeah.
So, like, in your opinion, is there a certain order? Say I want to read everything, which is what a fan is probably going to want to do. Is there a certain order that you would recommend reading all of these novels?
Okay, I'll tackle that. I would say start with Dune, but we have other places to start. For example, Bantam is reissuing our House series, which starts with Dune House Atreides, and that begins with events 35 years before the novel Dune. But chronologically, if you want to go back to the beginning of the first published story chronologically, then would be the Butlerian Jihad 10,000 years before Dune, when computers enslaved us and we had this great rebellion. And we also wrote the Sisterhood of Dune and 2 sequels that are set in the similar time period. But there's several starting points in the Dune universe, which is nice. And then you can just go back and read them all over again.
Well, and another thing that we've got with this is, instead, like Robert Jordan wrote The Wheel of Time, which was, I think, 15 books or something, but it was all a sequential 15 books. Mm-hmm. The Dune universe, it's broken up into several different islands. You can read the House trilogy, or you can just read the Frank Herbert books. You can just read the Butlerian Jihad books. So they're start to finish 3 books in this time period, almost like the different, not an exact comparison, but like the different Star Trek series. They take place in different places and different times, and there are different entry points. So it's not so overwhelming to look at the list of Dune books and what are we up to now, Brian, like 15 or 16 total books. You don't have to start at the first one and read all the way through 16. You can try this trilogy or that trilogy and then move on if you want to.
Well, starting with Dune, which I mentioned, you can then read Frank Herbert's 5 sequels. But then Dad passed away with notes that he was intending to write what he called Dune 7. So you could read Frank Herbert's 6 Dune books and then read Hunters of Dune and Sandworms of Dune, which Kevin and I wrote. And those are based on Frank Herbert's notes. So that would be a great series of 8 books to read.
How did Comic-Con at home go for you guys on the panel? How did, like the audience reaction? Was it more successful than actually being there in person? Do you prefer it?
Well, it's a lot easier to get from place to place to be virtually at home. But no, I just last night, I finished 2 weeks of teaching grad students at a university where I'm a professor. And it was 2 weeks of doing Zoom online classes instead of in person. And, it's just, that's the new world. We have to deal with it that way, but we still want to interact with people. And Brian and I would normally, we're about to start work on our next book in the Caladan trilogy. And normally I would get on a plane and fly up and we'd stay together and brainstorm for days and days. Well, we're going to have to just schedule some Zoom calls instead. And, it's not really worthwhile to sit back and moan about, I wish I was there at San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, I wish I was there at San Diego Comic-Con, but, I'm here and I'm still looking at Brian right here on the screen and we're still talking to the fans.
But we do like to personally interact with the fans, and we're looking forward to the time when we can in the future.
Do you think that this year, since it's free and open to anybody, that it's the year of the freshmen, that they're actually bringing in new fans to all these different types of new ideas for people?
Well, Kevin?
Well, I mean, it was always sort of this classic of people rushing to get tickets for San Diego Comic-Con. And I mean, I must have gone a dozen times or something. And there's always the moment that the hotel room's open, you're on the redial on your telephone and trying to get in there or being online. So there's a much more relaxed aspect and you can enjoy the interaction with the panels and the fans this way, but it's not quite as easy to get autographs. Although I do believe that Brian and I signed a bunch of signature plates for the Abrams graphic novel that is, I think it was offered here as part of the panel. So.
Well, before we ever published Dune House Atreides, there were fans online that were lambasting us. So it was really nice to go to Atlanta, to Dragon Con, and I didn't know if they were going to throw tomatoes at us or what, but there were a lot of people lined up to see us for that first book, and we gave away a little chapter of it. And the first person in line said to me, "Mr. Herbert, thank you for continuing this series." As Kevin has said, we both want to know where the series is going, and even if we have to write it ourselves.
Frank Herbert left like 12,000 years worth of history with little interesting points that he had fleshed out, but there's so much room for so many more stories. And I just think that with the movie, the TV show, the comics, the new novels, everything will be, it'll not run it dry. It's going to keep fleshing out.
Well, that's another thing I do. I co-manage my father's estate. And so I actually hired Kevin and myself as writers. So I'm wearing a couple of hats there.
And I haven't been fired yet, so.
I would fire myself first.
Thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to read all the new ones coming out and all the past books too. I appreciate it. And we miss you, and we'll see you soon at Comic-Con.
Okay, we'll be there.
Thanks, Chris. Glad we could see the con behind you so we get a little bit of a taste.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to meet y'all.
You too, Chris.